It is 3 in the morning. In Gelsenkirchen, everything is still completely quiet. It is December 27th, 2025. The Christmas holidays have just come to an end, and in the early morning hours there is hardly anyone out on the streets. At around that time, 2 vehicles are moving quietly through the Gelsenkirchen district of Buer. The black Audi and the white Mercedes van look completely ordinary, but the men driving these cars are just moments away from carrying out nothing less than the biggest bank robbery in Europe history. And even months after the crime, a lot will remain completely unclear because the perpetrators are about to pull off the perfect crime. No bank robber had ever made off with as much money as was stolen in this break-in. And as you will see, the perpetrators used brilliant methods that feel straight out of Ocean's 11. We are about to show you this brilliantly executed robbery, and we will also show you exactly which weaknesses in the bank's security system made something like this possible, and why the perpetrators were able to escape without any trouble. But back to Gelsenkirchen. At some point in the early morning, probably around 3:30, the men now turn onto De la Chevalerie Street, because this is exactly where their target is located. The Sparkasse Bank in Buer, which sits on the ground floor of this inconspicuous apartment building. But the perpetrators do not drive directly to it. Instead, they drive into the parking garage located diagonally behind it to what would become the central hub of the entire robbery. Because in this parking garage, there is a public section on the upper level and a private section underneath the garage. This private section is only for long-term parkers. You need a contract to even be allowed down there. The thieves appear to have had such a contract because they get past the first hurdle with ease and drive both the Audi and the Mercedes van down into the long-term parking area. But it goes even further. The long-term parking area itself consists of 3 more levels. The thieves drive all the way down to level -3, and right there is a tunnel. And as you can see here, that tunnel connects the parking garage and the bank. And all of this is 3 floors below ground. You can actually drive straight through this tunnel, but at the entrance to the section of the underground garage that lies beneath the bank, there is a first obstacle, a large gate that has to be opened. There are only 3 groups of people who possess a special key that can open this door. Either employees of cash transport companies, employees of the bank itself, or residents living in the apartments above the bank. One of these people must have been working with the thieves, because the thieves have the key that allows them to open the gate. They pass through the gate without any trouble and are now underneath the bank, directly below the bank's vault room. But the vault room is not directly accessible. There is a whole series of doors that have to be opened. One of them, and actually the most important one, is an emergency exit door. It can only be opened from the inside and has no way of being opened from the outside. So in theory, the thieves should not have been able to open it. But the thieves still get through the door. Somehow it had been manipulated from the inside so that it no longer closed fully and could therefore be opened from the outside. Now the thieves were in the basement area of the bank building. Down there were storage rooms belonging to the bank, but also a few basement rooms used by tenants in the building. What was missing, however, were any surveillance cameras or sensors that would have triggered an alarm while the thieves moved through the basement. From there, they were also able to use a staircase to reach the floor, where the vault room was located directly above the basement without any problems. So the thieves are now almost at their goal. There is only one obstacle left: the archive room. This room was located directly in front of the vault room, and even though it only contained rather unimportant files, the only way to get to the vault room was through this archive room, which was directly next to it. And here too, you might think the thieves would finally be stopped. After all, the archive room was well secured with a security door and a keypad lock. But even that was no obstacle for the thieves. They entered a code and got into the room. Days later, investigators discovered that the door was in perfect condition and therefore must have been opened using a code. A code that, in theory, only a few of the most senior employees of the bank even knew. Now they had reached their target, the wall leading into the vault room, because the thieves did not have the access code for that room. So they went back downstairs to the white van and retrieved the tool that would help them overcome the final barrier as well: a core drill with a diamond drill bit. These large drilling machines can weigh up to 40 kilograms with the stand attached, but when taken apart into individual pieces, they can be carried fairly easily. Before that, they had connected a water hose in the women's restroom, and it did not take long before they positioned the device against the vault wall and started drilling. They used the water from the hose to cool the drill. They most likely determined the exact drilling point themselves, probably with an indoor localization system. They had most likely rented a safety deposit box in the vault room themselves and stored nothing there except a device linked to that system. That is exactly how they knew where they needed to drill through. The drilling itself took a long time, but even though morning was slowly approaching and people were living 2 floors above them, nobody heard it. That is mainly because of the drill they chose. A core drill is much quieter than a hammer drill. It grinds away the material rather than striking it, which means it produces hardly any vibrations. But here the thieves make their first mistake. They apparently do not have any dust extraction for the drill, and the dust from the machine eventually reaches a fire detector, which then triggers the alarm. By now, it is 6:15 in the morning, and the bank's security service, a police officer, and the fire brigade are just arriving at the bank. But they do not come in through the parking garage. Of all ways, they approach the vault room through the bank itself. Right there, a steel gate blocks their path. The firefighters see no signs of a fire. There is no smoke anywhere and everything appears completely normal, so they decide it was a false alarm and they leave again. By this point, the thieves had already made a great deal of progress with their drilling. The drill is said to have been running for a full 6 hours before the thieves finally entered the vault room. Then a massive chunk of concrete breaks free and the path to the safety deposit boxes is now open. The first thing the burglars do inside the vault room is cover the motion detectors with simple tape, so they can no longer trigger any alarm. Now the real hard work begins, because for their job the men do not use forklifts or loud machines. With methodical precision, they now force open one safety deposit box after another. In total, they open more than 3,083 safety deposit boxes, around 95% of all the boxes in that vault room. The burglars have to assess the contents within seconds each time. Cash, into the bag. Gold bars, into the bag. Jewelry, into the bag. Wills, wedding photos, hard drives, onto the floor. By Sunday night, the loot has all been packed away, but even then the job is not finished. The perpetrators are presumably professionals, and they know exactly that they may have left traces behind. So before they leave, they turn the crime scene into a chemical battlefield. They spray disinfectant everywhere to destroy DNA, and they empty a fire extinguisher. And then comes the final psychological trick that will later drive investigators to despair. They scatter hundreds of hairs from other people, which they probably obtained from hair salons. Investigators already know this tactic from other cases. Forensic teams will need months to compare all the DNA traces against databases, will end up finding traces from countless innocent citizens, and probably will not find a single real lead. A forensic nightmare. Monday, December 29th, 3:50 in the morning. The white van and the black Audi now roll up to the barrier at the parking garage. Surveillance camera footage even captured the entire operation. One man gets out, calmly lifts the barrier by hand, while another pays for the parking ticket completely normally. Then the vehicles disappear into the darkness, and the insane Gelsenkirchen bank robbery is over. Only minutes after the escape, at exactly 3:58, the fire alarm went off again, presumably because of settling dust or the chemical fumes from the extinguisher foam. This time, when the fire brigade opened the doors and pushed into the basement, the emergency crews were naturally met with a scene of utter devastation. The floor of the vault room was covered ankle-deep in bent metal deposit boxes, torn papers, and a white blanket of foam. By Monday morning, the news that the bank had been broken into spread like wildfire. Within just a few hours, Nienhof Street had turned into a crisis zone. Hundreds of people gathered in front of the bank in freezing temperatures. They were shocked, stunned, and above all, furious. Many shouted at the police officers standing in front of the bank, and some even tried to break through the barriers to see whether their own safety deposit boxes had also been broken into. Chants echoed through the streets of Buer, and the police had to seal off the branch with a massive deployment in order to prevent the building from being stormed. And the fact that emotions were running this high is entirely understandable, because interviews with various media outlets at the scene quickly made it clear that many people had not just lost some jewelry or keepsakes. Instead, unbelievably high-value assets and enormous sums of cash had been stored in those safety deposit boxes. While one man reported that he had stored gold worth 100,000 euros in his safety deposit box, another customer, for example, had kept a Rolex watch worth 120,000 euros there. One pensioner who had sold his house shortly before Christmas had deposited the entire proceeds from the sale, 400,000 euros in cash. Another customer had even stored an unbelievable 600,000 euros in the form of gold bars. Overall, the total damage is now estimated at up to €100 million and 2,500 affected customers. That makes this not only the biggest bank robbery in Germany, but one of the biggest bank robberies anywhere in the world. Because this break-in made off with such an exorbitant sum of money, the police are now upgrading operations on a historic scale. Gelsenkirchen police immediately set up the Special Task Force, which has by now been expanded to 350 officers. But the investigation is a true Herculean task. Investigators are working 12-hour shifts, have already secured more than 50,000 objects and traces, and conducted more than 1,000 interviews. But despite all that, there is still no real lead whatsoever. A small glimmer of hope appeared on January 4, 2026, when the license plates from the black Audi RS6 were found near Dortmund Central Station. But the trail led nowhere. Experts believe the bank robbery was carried out by an international gang, possibly from Eastern Europe. Only a large gang with the necessary equipment and knowledge could carry out an operation like this so precisely. But beyond these assumptions, there is nothing. To this day, not a single euro of the loot has reappeared, and the perpetrators have vanished like phantoms. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe. See you next time.